Kevin Hill had never been one for half measures. His life in Derby had been a tapestry woven from threads of determination and quiet perseverance. From the moment he first labored to take a breath, he fought, through school, through his early battles with health, through unexpected detours that might have broken a lesser spirit. His wife, Hannah, often said Kevin carried his scars like medals, not proud of the wounds themselves, but of the wounds survived. Yet nothing in his 40 years of adulthood prepared him for the day his world slipped into darkness. He sat on an examination table in Derby Royal Hospital, the antiseptic tang of disinfectant thick in the air. Machines beeped in rhythmic insistence. Pain radiated from his legs, and pools of discomfort lingered in every step, a cruel reminder of the years he'd fought chronic kidney disease. He had lost count of the days spent in dialysis waiting rooms, where hushed conversations shared faded hopes and tentative prayers. But today, as he watched his own blood trickle through a tube back into his body, something constricted deep within him, a tightening not of the vein but of the soul. Calciphylaxis was a complication almost mythic in its rarity, and almost legendary in its ruthlessness. Calcium crystals invaded tiny vessels, choking them until they burst or bled, leaving ulcers that refused to heal. Kevin had felt it first as a dull ache in his calves. Then pain bloomed, sharp and jagged, as if his flesh were a canvas on which rancid blossoms sprouted and died. 3 nights ago, he awoke drenched in sweat, blood seeping through the sterile dressing on his shin. It ran in rivulets down the mattress, and he knew in his bones this was not normal. He breathed through the fear as nurses patched him up again and again. He watched them circle, wheel in gurneys, don gloves and masks with urgent focus. He saw the worry in Hannah's eyes when she arrived at his bedside, hair mussed from crying, face pale behind her surgical mask. He squeezed her hand, whispered assurances he barely felt. Yet by dawn, the worst happened. His heart fluttered like a trapped bird, then stopped. The beeping of monitors flattened into a single sustained tone, a wail that cut through the corridor and into the sterile hallways of the hospital. Doctors swarmed around him. They slid paddles across his chest. They shouted orders clipped and urgent. But before the current jolted his heart back to life, he knew, in the split second between beats, that death had come for him. Part 1: The Descent. There was no tunnel of light. No swirling vortex beckoning him onward. Instead, Kevin felt himself detach, rising weightlessly above his own motionless form. He hovered a few feet above the bed, the white sheets stained with the night's battles. It felt like watching a life-size diorama, suspended in glass. He studied his beaten body, the puncture wounds on his arms, the dark stains around the puncture sites, the loathsome ulcer on his leg, raw and angry. Machines lay silent now, monitors flatlining in eerie unison. Time held its breath. Yet in that silence, Kevin discovered something unexpected, profound peace. The sharp edges of pain and fear dissolved. He perceived his surroundings in slow motion, as if each second were a grain of sand sliding deliberately through an hourglass. He discovered he could hear his wife's heartbeat, not the rapid thump of panic, but the slow, steady pulse of unconditional love that yearned for him to return. Beyond the hospital room stretched a vast expanse of nothingness. He could not see it, only sense it. There was no color, no shape, no temperature. Yet in that void, he felt warm and safe. No memories intruded, no regrets or unfulfilled ambitions. Time lost meaning. It wasn't an absence of light, but an absence of every sensory boundary he ever knew. He felt a nudge, a gentle invitation, that beckoned him forward. But the desire to drift off into oblivion felt too effortless, too permanent. Not yet. Something inside him refused to surrender, a spark of stubborn life that remembered promises made to Hannah, to his 2 young children, to the countless mornings he'd promised himself he'd make better. He clung to that spark. He fought it like a swimmer battling a current, limbs thrashing in placid waters. Part 2: The Spirit Realm. Gradually, the void gave way to something else. Hazy shapes formed on the horizon, like clouds illuminated from within. Soft voices echoed from afar, unintelligible, yet familiar. No face or figure appeared, but he sensed presence, watchers, guides, perhaps souls like his own who had passed on before him. As he drifted toward the glow, he realized he no longer felt weightless fear but serene focus. A bridge, or something like one, materialized beneath him. Not of stone, but shimmering threads woven from light itself. Each strand pulsed gently, guiding him onward. He touched it with his consciousness and felt memories flash, his father's laughter, the first time he'd held his daughter in his arms, the day Hannah proposed in the rose garden. He sensed each memory not as reflection but as emotion, bright as living fire. On the other side, figures gathered. They wore no discernible shape, yet Kevin recognized them by presence alone. One stood out, a tall form radiating compassion so intense it almost hurt to witness. It reached for him. Kevin felt an overwhelming urge to let go of everything and step forward into that light. To rest. And yet, in that moment, he knew the world he would leave behind was not hers to take. Not this way. He planned to return. He had a life unfinished, love still unclaimed. Part 3, The Struggle. As the connection frayed, so did the peace. The brilliance of the realm receded, replaced by shadows of doubt. He felt his body below, cold and still, suspended between life and death. Machines roared back to life as doctors resumed their fight. A harsh buzz filled his awareness, urgent voices calling out numbers, curses of hope and frustration. He felt a tug, like a lifeline thrown across a chasm. At the same time, the bridge of light contracted, threatened to vanish altogether. Kevin realized time was slipping through his fingers. His mind, which had felt eternal moments ago, now raced. He willed himself to retrace each step back to his body. He blinked, though he saw nothing. He clenched his fists, though he felt only the warmth of intention. And suddenly, as though pulled by magnets, he snapped back. His consciousness plunged into his chest. His lungs flooded with air. His eyes flew open. The room erupted with relief and astonishment. He gasped, tears coursing down his cheeks, tears not of pain, but of wonder. Part 4, Awakening. Kevin lay in a haze of beeping monitors and the scent of antiseptic. He could feel the firmness of Hannah's hand grasping his. She looked at him with such fierce love that he thought it might burn him alive. Yet in that moment, he felt safe. Alive. A nurse checked his vitals. "Good to see you back with us," she whispered. The attending physician poked his head in, eyebrows raised. "You're a miracle, Kevin," he said softly. "No one should survive 5 pints of blood loss. Especially not with calciphylaxis." Kevin tried to nod but found his throat too tight. Instead he whispered, "Tell me what happened." He was told he had been dead for 3 minutes, though Kevin suspected those 3 minutes had stretched into a lifetime on the other side. They had managed to stop the bleeding, stabilize his heart, and reopen a valve that had been giving him trouble since last year's surgery. They would monitor him for days, weeks. They would treat the ulcers and manage the toxins that still coursed through his bloodstream. Part 5, Ripples on the Surface. Days after his miraculous return, Kevin sat up in bed, staring out the window at rusty rooftops dotted with morning sunlight. Visitors came and went, friends bringing flowers, his kids pressing cold-pressed juice into his hand. With every laugh, every sigh, he felt the tie that bound him to this world tighten like a cable. Yet beneath each heartbeat lay a tremor of memory he could not shake. The spirit realm called to him in dreams, draping gauzy veils of light over his sleeping mind. He saw that tall figure again, never fully, always just beyond his grasp. Sometimes in dreams they spoke in the silence between words, and Kevin felt truth seep in, that life and death were threads in the same tapestry, not opposites but partners in an endless dance. He vowed to honor the tapestry on the other side. He asked to see the chaplain, though he had never considered himself particularly religious, and told her what he'd seen. She listened with tear-glimmered eyes, held his hand as though anchoring him, then prayed for him. He didn't know whether her words reached beyond the hospital walls, but it felt right to speak them aloud, to name the ineffable. Part 6, Rebirth. When he finally walked out of the hospital, the world seemed too bright, too loud. Every shade of green felt more vibrant, every voice sweeter for the fragility it belied. Hannah met him in the parking lot, arms outstretched. He hugged her so hard he felt her ribs press against his. Their children ran circles around them, shrieking with pure joy at their father's return. Kevin looked at them, at Hannah's tired but triumphant smile, at his son's mop of curly hair, at his daughter's earnest eyes, and something in his chest swelled with gratitude. He had thought that peace had been reserved for the beyond, but life offered its own brand of serenity, in laughter, in the first sip of morning coffee, in the warmth of a sunbeam. He spent the next months recuperating at home. He planted a small rose garden in the backyard, each but a testament to resilience. He journaled every morning about his dreams, about the glimpses of the spirit realm he still caught. He returned to work part-time at the community center, leading meditation classes and volunteering in the palliative care unit, because to him, suffering and healing were inseparable, two sides of the same coin. Part 7, A Changed Man. 3 years later, Kevin stood at the podium in a packed auditorium, waiting to deliver his keynote address at the annual Derby Health Symposium. He cleared his throat, gazed at the sea of faces, nurses, doctors, patients, families. He had been invited not just as survivor, but as witness. He began, "I thought death would come in fire and fury, but it came in gentle silence." He described the absence of pain, the absence of light, the profound peace of absolute emptiness. He spoke of the spirit realm, the electric bridge of light, the figure of compassion waiting at the end. He spoke of choice, the power each of us holds to push back from the brink, to chase a promise of love and purpose. As he spoke, a hush fell. He told them of the blood that stained the sheets, of the chorus of monitors flatlining, of the hands of doctors who refused to give up. He spoke of his family, of the rose garden he planted in full knowledge that each bloom might wither, and yet choosing to plant anyway. He concluded, "What I saw on the other side was not an end, but a beginning. A reminder that life is fragile, beautiful, and ours to cherish. Don't wait to face death to realize what you have in life. Live now, with compassion, with daring, with gratitude, for that is the greatest miracle we can offer each other." Epilogue. Kevin walked off the stage to a standing ovation. As he stepped into the wings, Hannah found him and slipped her hand into his. Their children peered through the curtain, brimming with pride. Kevin's heart swelled, not from illness or pain, but from purpose. Each heartbeat reminded him that the chasm he near crossed was still there, still lurking in every moment. But he no longer feared it. He knew that beyond it lay peace. And in this world, he carried that peace within him, a lantern to shine upon the days ahead. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more stories.